Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Access Blockbusters Pod. Welcome back to episode number 122. The number keeps growing. Guys, I am so excited, so thrilled to be back with you here today. Welcome back. We are ramping up towards the Oscars. We are ramping up towards Daredevil Born Again Season 2. We've been ramping up to Daredevil Born Again Season 2 all of the last 12 months because of our Defenders Saga rewatch, and we're wrapping it up next week. So this week, I'm going to talk about Daredevil Born Again Season 1, and then wrap it up with a ranking next week of all the series. And in addition to that, this week we're talking about my Oscar movie rankings, talking about The Boys, Lanterns, Paramount, all the craziness going on with Paramount and Warner Brothers and Netflix. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about with you guys. Now, I want to give a quick disclaimer up front here. And this is on more of a personal note, so please indulge me. I know that I try to keep the intros as short as possible, but just I felt like I wanted to talk about this here because this is the podcast audience. This is the core audience if you guys are listening to the full podcast. For the last over 500 days, and I know there was a little glitch in January, that was because of an upload error, but just for all intents and purposes, for the last 500 to 600 days, I have uploaded a video every single day. At least one video every single day. Sometimes two, sometimes even three, I think, in certain instances, when there's just tons of things to talk about. And it's been something I've been proud of, proud to do. At least 6 segments plus the podcast episode every single week. This week is going to be the first week where I intentionally do not do that in about 500 days, in about a year and a half. And there are a couple of reasons behind this. Number one is just that I realize that there are some weeks where I feel like I can push myself to find 6 stories to talk about, but maybe a couple of them I'm like, am I as interested in this? Like, would I have intentionally made a segment about this if I didn't have to? I don't know. Maybe. There are some things that were interesting to talk about, but, just like this person it says they like to return in this movie. I'm like, that's cool. That might be interesting. And not to say that those aren't interesting topics to talk about, and we will definitely continue to talk about things as they come up. Apologies for the sirens in the background, that's ominous. But I think that, I think that as I've been thinking about this, and this week we have 5 segments instead of 6, and so we're going to have one day that's going to be not an upload day. And I just feel like at this point in my life, at this point where I'm at, if there's not going to be 6 topics that I'm just super interested and passionate to talk about here, then there's let's stick to 5. Let's still have a great podcast episode and talk about 5. So from here on out, if that happens, because again, if there are 6 plus individuals interesting topics to talk about every week, of course we're going to upload every single day. But if there's slower weeks, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. So anyways, that was a bit of an introduction, a bit of a tangent, if you will. But I want to address the podcast audience here because I think that's just something that I want to talk to you guys about. So anyways, guys, let's get into this. Again, all the usual stuff. If you haven't subscribed to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel, make sure to do so. Give this video a like. If you could, leave a comment down below with what you think about any of these topics. Podcast is on audio-only platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Overcast. And guys, super long intro. I apologize. Just wanted to get some things off my chest. Let's get into today's topics. Alrighty, guys. Believe it or not, we are finally here at the end of the road. Kind of. This is the final series that we are going to be talking about in our Defenders Saga rewatch as we gear up, and I can't believe we've made it, but we've made it, as we gear up, just in time, for Daredevil Born Again Season 2. This is going to be a look back on Daredevil Born Again Season 1. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, because you might just be checking out this video because you wanted to get a refresher or hear some thoughts on Daredevil Born Again Season 1, what we've been doing here on the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel and on the Access Blockbusters Pod is going through every single series in the Defenders Saga. I have watched every single one in the span of the last year, all leading up to Daredevil Born Again Season 1 and now up to Daredevil Born Again Season 2 to really get a better understanding of where these characters are, because in the last year, a lot of things have happened in terms of these characters. Number one, these characters are now canon to the MCU completely. Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin and Charlie Cox's Daredevil, as they've appeared in Hawkeye or Echo or Spider-Man No Way Home, are no longer variants of these characters, but are actually the same exact characters that appeared in those Netflix series. So that's one thing. And number two, because of that, these characters are making a sudden resurgence across the MCU. Punisher is getting his own special presentation and is showing up in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is going to introduce Jessica Jones for sure, and who knows, any number of Defenders could show up in that series. So again, I think that, the whole reason we started this was because when Daredevil Born Again Season 1, which we're going to talk about in just a second, I promise, when that was coming out, I thought maybe it would be fun to rewatch Daredevil. I had seen only Daredevil Season 1, Daredevil Season 2, and Daredevil Season 3, as well as Defenders when those seasons were not coming out, but when they had come out pretty recently. I think it was around 2019. I did not, however, watch any of the other shows. I think I started a couple episodes of Jessica Jones, but didn't really get into any of the episodes or the other series in full. And so I thought, okay, let's just start with Daredevil. I loved it. I thought it was great. And as I was starting Daredevil Season 2 at the time, a year ago now, I was like, well, let's maybe give Jessica Jones a try, and the rest is history. And I'm so glad that I did. Like I've been saying, and again, this is the last thing I'm going to say. We're going to get into Daredevil Born Again Season 1. Like I've been saying, though, I haven't loved every single season, every single series, but I've still found this process to be incredibly constructive and incredibly fulfilling, as I now have a complete and full understanding of where these characters are in their MCU journeys. And I'm very excited to share that with you guys here today. So, Daredevil Born Again Season 1. Well, first of all, if you're even interested in all of my thoughts on every single episode, individual episode, when this series first came out, that is all on the channel. There is a playlist on the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel. Go check it out. It's all there. But it's been a year, and I think there was a lot of interesting baggage around the show, right? Because we had all heard the facts that, Daredevil Born Again was filming for this 18 episode season, but then Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio weren't happy with it, so they kind of scrapped the whole thing and brought in the showrunner for The Punisher, and they redid a bunch of things and reshot some things and added beginnings and endings. And what we got last year was sort of the Frankenstein's monster of whatever happened behind the scenes. Now, for Season 2, I have a lot more hope because I think that it's going to be much more streamlined and continuous. But for Season 1, we got all sorts of things. And so as we were watching the show, when it first was coming out, I was thinking, I just kind of wanted to take it in for what it was and kind of see, maybe look out for what did I think was different, what did I think was from the old show, what was from the new show, but also just kind of take in what the show was. And I left feeling a little underwhelmed, right? Because I think that the show had set up a lot of really interesting things. The middle kind of meandered. We'll talk about that as we get into this rewatch. But I think the ending was strong up until the point where Daredevil kind of goes to the Red Hook port and he's like, next time. We'll get him next time. And I found that pretty dissatisfying the first time around. So this time around, I was really keen on trying to just watch this as a show, because this is also the first time I'd seen this show as a show all the way through, not week by week. I do think week by week is great in the moment, but I also think that it does change your perception of how a show is, because you're left with questions that will likely be answered in the next episode, but you don't know that for a whole week, and so you're kind of left thinking about that and ruminating on that. When you watch the show in one go, things that that might have felt a little more discontinuous feel a little bit more coherent, but also certain things start to pop up that weren't there before. And I think Daredevil Born Again Season 1 is actually quite solid now that I have just seen the show again and just taken it all in for what it is. I actually do think, right, I think I liked it a decent bit more, interestingly enough, than I did the first time. And that's also interesting because I just come off of seeing Daredevil Season 3, which I think is the best season of Netflix television that they did for Marvel. It is fantastic. And interestingly enough, because I had just seen what I think is the best season, and frankly, I think the best season of Daredevil television, I was really being a little more analytical and a little more critical of okay, is this show matching up to it? And because there are a lot of really good elements of Daredevil Born Again Season 1 that do align, I think, with the standards and with the tone and with the character development of Daredevil Season 3 or Daredevil Season 2 or Season 1. And I think that because I had just seen those seasons, I was much more cognizant of it. I think the ending, very clearly the last couple episodes were what was part of the reshoots and things like that. And I think it shows, because I think the last couple episodes feel more focused and darker, and focusing on the bullseye aspect of it all, focusing on Matt Murdock as he tries to figure out what Foggy was doing and why Foggy was killed, carrying on the storylines of Vanessa Fisk and Wilson Fisk and Bullseye. I think that they referenced Nadine as well, which is something that I probably didn't catch the first time around, and now that I did in the finale. So all those things, and again, Daredevil suiting up again. The Daredevil Punisher apartment fight is, I think, reminiscent of the original show. It's fantastic. It's great. All of Daredevil and Punisher's interactions, frankly, are just amazing. They're so good. They are so in line with what the original show was. And the beginning, the first episode, I think, does a good job of establishing that baseline. I came out of those first two episodes rewatching the show of going, oh, wow, this show really does feel like the next season of Daredevil. I mean, obviously a lot of time has passed, but it does feel like the next season of Daredevil after a little bit of a time jump. The first two episodes are great. That conversation in the diner between Kingpin and Matt Murdock is I think arguably across the 4 seasons of Daredevil, it's up there in terms of the best scenes of that entire show. It is fantastic. The sort of the not respect that they have for each other, but sort of the begrudging respect, I guess you could say, that these characters have for one another. And yet the understanding that both of these characters know in their heart of hearts that they're going to step out of line. Either, the Kingpin knows that Daredevil is eventually going to step out of line, and Daredevil knows that Kingpin is eventually going to step out of line, but they're not really saying it, but they are saying it, right? It's such a great conversation. I am, of course, disappointed, speaking of the first episode, that Foggy Nelson had to die, because I just watched 3 seasons of Daredevil. I love Foggy. He's amazing. I think that you do feel his loss a lot, just the loss of a supporting character like that who is so true to Matt. And one maybe wishes that if you were going to do that, you want to start your show off with a bang. And I know they had to rewrite the whole beginning and stuff like that. And so they inserted that pretty late in the process. But one wishes that this kind of happened maybe towards the middle of a season or towards the end of a season to really give it dramatic weight. But again, it is what it is, And we'll see Foggy in flashbacks, it looks like, in Daredevil Warning in season 2. So that's, at least we'll get to see a little bit more of Foggy. But again, Wilson Fisk's rise to mayor. And again, we talked about this before I remember talking about this in our original Daredevil Born Again reviews and reactions. No, we don't get too political here on this channel, but if anyone wants to think, oh, that's crazy that someone like Kingpin could rise to power like that and utilize the anti-vigilante task force in such a way where he basically commandeers them and they go out and do whatever they want, I would just, I would kind of recommend looking outside and seeing what's going on in the world, because it is not as implausible as one might have thought maybe a couple of years ago or 5 or 10 years ago. And so I think that just makes him actually even more of a scary character, Kingpin. So again, the first couple episodes I thought were great. And we talked about the last couple episodes. I think that, they still came off as a bit unfulfilling, because it just feels like, okay, we're building up to this confrontation about the Red Hook, project and the port and things like that. And Matt's like, yes, Karen, let's go get it. And then he's like, no, wait, actually, we're going to build an army. Let's wait till next season. It's like, okay. That kind of feels like, oh, well, we couldn't really film that ending because we had ideas for the next season. So wait till next time. And it's like, okay, at least next season's coming in a year and not 10 years. So there's that. So the beginning and the end, really great. The middle chunk of the show is very interesting, though, because while the middle chunk of Daredevil Born Again has some really good stuff in there, I like a lot the trial of Hector Ayala and the White Tiger subplot in there. I think that's really good. If rumors are to be believed, the original show, the original concept and maybe execution of Daredevil Born Again was going to be more of a procedural in Matt Murdock taking different cases. So maybe, 2 or 3 episodes have a different arc, and he's not really Daredevil until episode 4. That was the one thing that was reported, by the way, at the time of, one of the big things that they were complaining about is that Matt doesn't put on the Daredevil costume until episode 4. Well, guess what? He doesn't put on the Daredevil costume again from episode 1 until episode 6. So it's kind of a weird complaint to me, but whatever. It's fine. As long as it fits the story. But, at any rate, the original concept for the show seemed like it was just going to be more like a court case, courtroom kind of drama. And you can kind of see that, right? I can kind of see that. I think that the Hector Ayala stuff was probably one of those cases. But to be frank, whether or not it was, I liked it. I thought it really was dramatic. It played well into the world of the MCU, but it also played well into the aspects of Daredevil that we love, which is the courtroom stuff, right? The Punisher trial in season 2 is one of the best subplots that they've ever done. So no, I love the courtroom stuff. And then I think what he represents about vigilantism and then the police force, the corrupt police force, I think all was great, right? So that subplot was really good. The guy, I forget his name. I forget his name, but the guy who steals kettle corn or popcorn or whatever it was, a little less interesting, to be honest with you. I was like, okay. But it's not really a subplot in there. And so he just kind of brushed past it. So that is well and good. And then there's the Muse of it all. I don't know if Muse was originally in the plans. I have a sneaking suspicion just because of the tone of Muse that he was part of the rewrites and reshoots and stuff like that. But because of that, you just aren't given enough time. I like what they did with Muse. And on paper, you do explain a lot of the things that he's doing and why he's so skilled at martial arts. He did Taekwondo and stuff like that. So, on paper, a lot of the stuff with Muse is interesting and it works. It's just that we got such little time with him and such little development with him that instead of being a full season villain like Bullseye was in season 3, he's in there for 2 episodes, maybe. And that's disappointing, right? Because he has the potential to be such a scary character. So that's really my complaint with Muse. And I think a lot of people's complaint with Muse. And then, there is the episode 5, right smack in the middle, with interest. This is, if I do say so myself, one of my least favorite episodes, not just amongst Daredevil, not just amongst Netflix, Marvel, probably amongst all of Marvel television, including Disney Plus and Netflix. Now, I hated it a lot more when I first watched it, and let's be clear, it's watchable, so I don't hate it, but this episode in particular, I don't know why they decided to because this episode so clearly, it felt so totally different from anything else really that was going on outside. And to me, not everything else, because you can tell, right, that this original version of Daredevil Born Again, that I feel like I can kind of get where the lines start to blur and where the different segments were sort of stitched together. Because there are moments that are attempting to make some of the darker characters a little bit more humorous and a little lighter in terms of their tone in the MCU. One clear example is the "we built this city" joke that was in, I think, episode 4. I feel like that was so clearly a part of the old Daredevil Born Again. And it just doesn't really work because Kingpin is sort of being a goof in that scene. Kind of like how he was in in Hawkeye, but Hawkeye was just a different show, right? This is Daredevil Born Again. And episode 5, all of episode 5, the Irish mobsters or gangsters, whoever they were, so poorly written, I think, and pretty badly acted as well. I mean, the part in the episode, this is such a dumb thing, but the part in the episode that made me really throw my hands in the air was when Matt Murdock was like, "Oh, but I need to use the bathroom." And they were like, "Okay, I guess so." In what world, if you're doing, if you're capturing hostages, do you let one of them go to the bathroom in the middle of it? So there are all these things. That episode, you can go watch my original breakdown and thoughts on that episode. I don't know if they've changed a whole lot, but that episode to me, if I rewatch the show ever again for non-YouTube reasons, I may just skip that episode. It's like that Stranger Things episode in season 2. I may just skip it. It's crazy how different it was. And frankly, if that episode was, if we were going to get 18 episodes of that in the original Daredevil Born Again, I am so glad they intervened. Because that episode, I don't even know why they put it in the season anyways. They could have just taken it out completely. I was waiting in episode 6, 7, and 8, and 9 to see references and things at least picked up from that episode to be like, okay, well, I guess they had to put that in. There's nothing. They could have taken that episode out entirely. So again, I really have some problems with the middle part of the season. You can really tell which parts of this season were stitched together. It's really easy to tell, actually, in my opinion. But all that to say, the strong parts of the season, the parts that frankly I think were from this new revamped team that is now doing season 2 and now season 3, I really liked. I think it stacks up to anything that Daredevil has done, anything that the older seasons have done. And that makes me so excited for Daredevil Born Again season 2. And I can look past all of those oddities like episode 5 and the "we built the city" and some of the odder subplots and the messier subplots and how shortchanged Muse was. By the way, though, even though Muse was shortchanged, that dual fight scene between Kingpin and Adam and Daredevil and Muse is still incredible. It's fantastic. So even still, some of the stuff that they did with Muse, I still thought was great. At the end of the day, Daredevil Born Again is a product of its time just because of where it was in the MCU, what it was trying to do, and how it came to be. But I think, on face value, just as a series, I like it a lot. And I think more than anything else, it is such a promising sign. Who knows, right? Daredevil Born Again season 2 might fall flat on its face. I like the trailers a lot. But guys, I mean, this season, it's messy. It's not great at times. But the parts that stand out to me are the parts that really stack up to any part of Daredevil that we've seen thus far. And I'm so excited about that. Guys, what do you think about Daredevil Born Again Season 1? What do you think about the show? Do you think that it's messy? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys. The day has almost come upon us. We are in full swing for Oscar season. And in fashion, in tradition, as we've done, I guess this is the second year running now. So 2 years in a row, we are going to do some Oscar buzz, I suppose, Oscar predictions, Oscar rankings, and things like that to kick things off for the Oscar season. And I should say, we've been doing some previews of the other awards shows just to see what they're saying and what they might be previewing about the Oscars. But this is real Oscar season. I suppose we also did a segment on the nominations themselves. But again, we're in the thick of things here. So this segment is going to be my personal rankings of the Oscar films that I have seen. We are going to do our predictions next week. So stay tuned on the Access Blockbusters pod and YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for all of that, because we will be doing my personal predictions for the Oscars next week. And I did pretty well last year. I think I got 14 out of 17 categories right. Did pretty well. So I'm feeling pretty good about myself. Again, 1 year sample size, so we'll have to see about that. But again, that's not what this segment is. This segment is my own personal rankings of the Oscar films. Now, a few caveats here before we get started. Number 1, this is my own personal list. I know that there are schools of thought that say, well, there's a difference between your favorite movies or movies you like and the best movies. I personally don't really subscribe to that. I've made different segments on this YouTube channel about what I think a perfect movie is, your favorite movie is, why subjectivity plays such a big part in art and how you view it and things like that. And I just think, at the end of the day, I've gone down those rabbit holes of, is there such thing as a great movie that you can dislike and things like that? Maybe, maybe not. I tend to think not. But I think for the sake of conversation and just for the ease of my own personal rankings, these are my favorite films that I've seen out of the Oscar movies. So your list is going to look very different from mine, not just because we value different things in terms of cinematic quality and whatnot, but also because we just like different things stylistically. That's why our lists are going to look very, very different. Also, our lists are going to look different. This is the second point, because I didn't watch every single Oscar movie. I did not have a chance to watch every single documentary, short, international film, animated film. I just didn't have a chance, didn't have the time to watch every single one of those movies that were nominated for every single category. Instead, I prioritized the main category of Best Picture, and then I believe I hit every single other film that was nominated had a nominee for Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, and I tried as much as possible, although I didn't get to every single one. So that's, and it's something where eventually I'd hope to watch those movies, but I didn't get to every single one for writing or screenplay or casting or whatnot. But the main categories that I hit for these 14 films, there are 14 films on this list, are Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Director, and Best Picture. I think I hit every single one of those films that were nominated for those categories, because I think those are the ones that I really care about. So again, with those caveats out of the way, if you think my list is crazy, that's totally fine. It's my list, and your list is going to look different. Let me know what your list is before we get into any of this. Let me know what your list is in the comments down below, and then check it out. Just see how they compare to my own personal list. So here we go. Number 14, The Secret Agent. A movie that I think a lot of people in the Oscar circles or people who watch the Oscar movie seem to really like and seem to really enjoy the political thriller nature of it. And I like political thrillers. I really do. I loved, obviously, Captain America: Winter Soldier. For me, is a big frame of reference in the recent past. But also, I love politics in movies and shows. The West Wing is one of my favorite shows. So, and just espionage is really fun for me. Thrillers. So I thought that, it had the ingredients to be a good movie or one of my favorite movies. But it just, when I was watching this movie, it just never clicked. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure why. I think that there are films where I go, oh yeah, that's obviously why. It's X, Y, and Z, ABC, that's why this movie didn't click for me. The Secret Agent just really didn't for me. And it was a bummer because I wanted to like it. I think Wagner Moura gives a good performance, but I just really didn't click with me. So number 14 is The Secret Agent. Number 13 is Begonia. Begonia, a movie that I think has a very interesting premise, is very chaotic. Yorgos Lanthimos, he has made some very interesting and chaotic films over the last few years. I saw Poor Things, and I think he made another one with Emma Stone recently. Him and Emma Stone just making crazy movie after crazy movie. It's interesting. I think that the premise of, are you an alien? Are you, the queen mother of this alien race? And by the way, just to be clear, I'm not going to spoil a lot of things in these movies, but there might be minor spoilers. Just premises, though. Just premises. Just in case you haven't seen these movies. I should have said that up front. So anyways, the entire premise of, are you the alien queen mother and what's going on here? You're trapped in the basement. Interesting. Good performances by Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. I don't think a whole lot else for me to grasp onto other than that. So it was just an interesting movie to watch, but I wouldn't say it was a movie that I particularly loved. But again, if this is number 13 and 14, if 14 is a movie that I just wasn't that interested in, I didn't dislike any of these movies. I thought that they were all interesting in their own right, and so I really enjoyed that. So, number 13, Begonia. Number 12, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. First of all, Rose Byrne gives an incredible performance in this movie. I was stunned at how amazing she was. And if it weren't for the obvious frontrunner, which we'll talk about later on in this list, I think she would have won an Oscar in any other year, but there is another actress that I think just crushed it as well. But she gives an incredible performance. This is one of those movies, for me, that is just hard to watch. It is also in the realm of sometimes a little bit abstract and sometimes a little too crazy and chaotic for my taste. I don't mind crazy and chaotic. There is a crazy and chaotic film that made it to near the top of my list. I think I liked more controlled chaos, if that makes sense. This is a film that I think you can categorize, and I think intentionally so, by the way. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have been this way for the filmmaker, but as a spiral, a downward spiral. And there's a lot of interesting things that go on, the themes of parenthood and motherhood and things like that. It was just a lot to take in. And while I admire Rose Byrne's performance, man, it was crazy. It was heavy at times. And yeah, I just one of those movies. So if I had legs, I'd kick you at number 12. Number 11, and number 10 and 11 might surprise you, but number 11 is Sinners. I don't dislike Sinners. And by the way, I think Ryan Coogler is a fantastic director. I just think that he does such a great job. Michael B. Jordan gives a great performance. The musical elements in the middle of it, the musical elements just in general are great. The stylistic choices, the casting, the set design, everything. The filmmaking is great for Sinners. It's just not my kind of movie. I don't know how to explain it. I think I just don't like the horror vampire kind of stuff that was going on in it because it's just not my kind of movie. I don't know. Maybe a movie like Sinners just has a ceiling for me because I don't think it was necessarily a horror movie per se, but it was pretty dark. And I think that, the adrenaline of the movie is what I think a lot of people love about it. And for me, it just wasn't my sort of cup of tea. I love Michael B. Jordan in the movie, though. I think everyone else gives great performances as well. Haley Steinfeld, obviously, and movie Mosuku. I cannot pronounce these names. I apologize. I'm going to mispronounce a bunch of names as we go along here. But they gave great performances. Delroy Lindo, of course. It's just didn't really fit my sensibility. So that's why Sinners is there. But again, great movie. Ryan Coogler is amazing. I love his movies. I think the Black Panther films are some of the greatest in the MCU. So nothing against Ryan Coogler and his filmmaking, but just perhaps not my kind of movie here. Number 10, another one that might surprise you. One Battle After Another. I think that One Battle After Another is a movie that I may someday go back and watch. And as far as I can tell, this is not an official prediction. We're going to make those obviously later on. It's probably going to win Best Picture. It just probably is. And it's another year where last year Anora won Best Picture, and it was another movie that I was like, yeah, Anora was fun. And I thought that it had great performances, but Best Picture? Okay, interesting. I think One Battle After Another fits into that category as well. I don't know, maybe I'm just missing something. Because a couple years ago, Oppenheimer, I was like, oh yeah, maybe I wouldn't have put Oppenheimer as my favorite movie of that year, but I get it. I totally get it. The past couple years with Anora and presumably, right, who knows, One Battle After Another, and even presumably with Sinners, I'm like, because these are the kind of two frontrunners thus far, at least for the Oscars. One Battle After Another, I think was chaotic, and can you tell there's a theme here? I think chaotic films need to be controlled for me to really latch onto them, because I like to have an idea, an overarching structure, and things like that, and this movie does. And there are some fun things in there. I think the car chase at the end where you're going up the hills is really fun. And Leonardo DiCaprio does a great job. Tiana Taylor does a great job. Chase Infinity, Sean Penn. Great performances. Great directing by Paul Thomas Anderson. I just think that this movie kind of is one of those movies that you just go from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, and you're just kind of along for the ride. And it's 3 hours long. And I thought the movie was a little bit too long, to be honest with you. So I liked it. Or I found it fun, at least, and entertaining. And it had some obviously really, really interesting political messages and whatnot. I just really couldn't put it much higher on this list. So number 10, One Battle After Another. I saw it in theaters too. I didn't see a lot of these movies in theaters. I saw maybe 30-40% of these movies in theaters. And I have to say, there's an interesting mix of which movies I really enjoyed based on did I watch them in theaters or not. I don't think there's a correlation at all. I just think it's interesting. So there's that. Number 9, Weapons. Obviously just watched Weapons for Amy Madigan. And again, I don't think this movie could have gone much higher because of the horror elements of it. I just don't like horror. I really hate horror. I would be stunned if someday a horror film makes it to the top of my personal rankings for these Oscar movies. But I have to say, it's entertaining. And I think that one thing that makes Weapons stand out to me, right, is the structure of the movie. I think the structure of the movie is so interesting with how you're flashing back to different characters. I love movies like that where you get to flash back to different parts of the movie and fill in parts that didn't make sense to you at the beginning. And I think that is something that plays into the movie's strengths. I think that it is horror, but it's also thriller enough where it's not just cheap jump scares. There are jump scares, obviously, but it makes sense in that regard. I think that there is some ambiguity as to what's going on. Would I have preferred an explanation? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I think that I appreciate it for what it is. And again, it's a horror movie, so it's not going to be that much higher on this list. Number 8, Blue Moon. This is an Ethan Hawke showcase film. As a film, interesting. Kind of the concept of how much mileage can you get out of just one guy basically talking to a couple other people throughout the movie in one location. Interesting, right? And I was captivated by Ethan Hawke as a performer playing Larry, and I'm blanking on his last name. Larry starts with a T. Anyways, Ethan Hawke was fantastic, brilliant in this movie, just so captivating. As a film, interesting, entertaining, captivating. Not my kind of movie, though. But I can really appreciate what they were going for. And there are ways in which this kind of movie where you're just stuck in one location and you're watching just somebody have a conversation with other people, that's the kind of movie where I can see myself getting very easily bored of it or very easily uninterested. But Ethan Hawke makes this movie what it is, and it's fantastic. So, Blue Moon, number 8. Number 7, Frankenstein. A really solid movie, a really solid adaptation. I did a review of this on the channel when it came out. Really great cinematography, architecture, set design, gothic style, right? Jacob Elordi is great as Frankenstein's monster. Oscar Isaac is great as Dr. Frankenstein. Is it the most revolutionary film made of all time? No, it's not, at least in my opinion. But I think it's really solid. It's incredibly solid. And I think that there are themes in this movie, right, about what it means to just humanity and whatnot. And so I feel like it fits really nicely, just smack in the middle of this list as a really solid, amongst this grouping of films at least, a really solid movie that I enjoyed. Frankenstein, number 7. Number 6, the last film I actually saw before making this video, because this was the last movie that I wanted to see before I called it a day. Song Sung Blue, starring Kate Hudson and Hugh Jackman. Now, this is going to be a minor spoiler, although it's not really a spoiler, I think, but it's a minor spoiler. I went into most of these movies not knowing anything, so again, this is something where if you want to see the movie, maybe skip ahead a little bit. This is a movie where the first half I was thinking, and you guys know, if you've watched this movie, you guys know what I'm talking about. The first half of the movie I was like, I like it. It's fun. It's one of those sort of cute Hugh Jackman style Greatest Showman musical kind of movies. It's obviously not the same as Greatest Showman, but it's sort of that similar kind of vibe. By the way, Hugh Jackman, I love him. He's my favorite actor of all time. Love the guy as an actor. I was just kind of wondering, what is there to stand out about this movie? Especially because Kate Hudson was nominated for Best Actress, and I was like, I think she's great. I think Hugh Jackman's also great. But then something happens in the middle of this movie, and I'm like, oh, got it. And then Kate Hudson, kind of turns it up a level. And I think Hugh Jackman does a great job too. But I totally see now why Kate Hudson got nominated. She was great in the movie. And overall, I think that this is the kind of movie where I think maybe my one gripe with the movie is that it felt like it crammed a whole lot of life and a whole lot of just different elements of different things into one movie. And there are just things that get glossed over so quickly in montages. There's one thing in particular with the daughter character that, again, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, that just kind of gets glossed over in about 10 minutes. And I was like, oh, well, that felt significant, but I guess it wasn't. So, but again, I think that there are emotional moments. It's poignant. The music is great. Hugh Jackman is a great singer. Kate Hudson is a fantastic singer. She gives a great performance. I like the movie. And I think that it touched some emotional moments. It hit on the entertainment part. I love musicals, so this was right up my alley. Song Sung Blue, number 6. And it wasn't a musical, to be clear, but it had some musical elements in there as well. Number 5 is F1 the movie. Now, I know F1 the movie does not have the big emotional resonance of Song Sung Blue, or it does not have the captivating performance of a Blue Moon, or it does not have the incredible performance of an If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, or it does not have the grandiose scope of One Battle After Another. I liked it. It was so entertaining for me. This is not a Top Gun Maverick for me, right? It was directed by Joseph Kosinski, who also directed Top Gun Maverick. But as somebody who has never seen F1, an F1 race, I'm not a fan of F1, I was just so thoroughly entertained by this movie. And it's kind of weird, right? Because you put this movie on this list and you look at it and you go, why? How is F1 on this list? I just think that there are things in the bottom or the next movies down this list where I look at them and go, yeah, but this. Yeah, but that. Yeah, but this, right? And F1 does not have the ceiling of the next 4 movies. But it was just so thoroughly entertaining, and it was not revolutionary in terms of story or themes or whatnot. It's the classic underdog story. But the visuals were great. I saw it in a huge theater with Dolby and whatever, Atmos or whatever. And I just had a great time. So maybe this is one example of the theater experience kind of shooting this up the list a little bit more. I really liked it. So F1 is at number 5. Number 4, Sentimental Value. Sentimental Value was a movie that I was wondering throughout whether this was going to be too heavy, and too heavy just for me personally. I think heaviness in movies is warranted, obviously, and emotional moments are warranted, but sometimes it just can be a little bit too much for me. But this is a movie that is such an interesting character study and character exploration of a family. And I found the performances to be captivating. I found the emotional resonance to be very poignant and very profound. And I think that the performances from Stellan Skarsgård, and I apologize every single time I do one of these videos with nominations and winners, I just cannot pronounce and remember the actresses' names, but the two sisters, they're amazing. Elle Fanning was pretty good. She was pretty good in the movie. But I think that this portrait of this family, dealing with their struggles, dealing with art, dealing with life, dealing with trauma, I think that it felt so interesting and captivating. And there was enough catharsis in this movie for me to go, it's not just a depressing movie for the sake of being depressing. And not everything in this movie is depressing, but the performances and the story and his family are enough to really keep me on board. So Sentimental Value, I really thought was a good movie. Really enjoyed it. And I think these top 4 movies are kind of a next tier up. So Sentimental Value at number 4. Coming in at number 3 is Marty Supreme. Now, this was the example of controlled chaos that I was talking about. Because I think that a film like, for example, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, like I said, is sort of that downward spiral kind of movie, which again, I appreciate for what it is, but it's just not my kind of movie. Marty Supreme is chaotic. It is chaotic. But it has direction. And again, I'm not saying it has direction versus If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You as a comparison, meaning Marty Supreme is better. I'm just saying that it clicked more with me, where I was like, this is controlled chaos. And Timothée Chalamet, I think, gives the best performance out of any male actor I think I've seen this year. And he just drives this movie. He just controls this movie. And Marty is a character. Marty Mauser is a character that you just don't know. Do you root for him? Do you not root for him? Is he a good person? Is he not a good person? And it just plays in that gray area the whole time. And I thought it was great. I just thought it was so entertaining. It was great. You don't know how to feel about this character right up until the last scene. And then the last scene hits you and you're like, dang, it gives you a lot to think about. So Marty Supreme, number 3. Number 2 is Hamnet. Hamnet is a movie where it was trending in that direction. And if you've seen it, you know what I mean. I'm sure you know what I mean. The whole time, especially towards the second third of the movie, if that makes sense. The middle chunk, the second act. It was heavy. It was a heavy, heavy movie. And I was just thinking to myself, and I'd seen reviews that talked about Hamnet of the ending is just amazing. And I was like, I don't know how you can pull me out of this headspace, because I've seen enough movies now where if it's just too dark and too sad the whole time, I'm not going to like it as much. You know, if Hamnet had stayed in that middle area the entire time, honestly, it wouldn't have been that high on this list. And then the ending hits you like a ton of bricks. I knew that the ending was going to be good, at least from what other people said. I was not expecting what the ending was. I cried because it is one of the most resonant endings that ties together the emotions and the story of the previous 2 hours that you've been watching in a way that I'd never seen before like that. It is something where the entire movie is worth going through just for the ending, I believe. And I'm not saying it's a perfect movie, because the first couple hours, the first hour and 45, it's choppy. It's paced not as great as I think I'd have hoped. And yet the ending just pulls it together in a way that I've never seen before. Chloe Zhao deserves all the praise in the world for that, because I just could not believe the last scene. Jessie Buckley will win the Oscar. I truly believe it. And she deserves it. It's amazing. It's amazing what she was able to do. So, Hamnet at number 2. Number 1 is a film that when I saw it, and it was pretty early on in my Oscar watching, and I just really couldn't believe that another film didn't top it. Not because I thought that this movie wasn't as good, and I was like, why isn't any other movie topping it? But because this is the kind of movie that I usually gravitate towards. And if you're looking at your own mental checklist, you're like, what movie is left? And you see that movie, and you're going, really? I would assume, at least. Yeah. Train Dreams. Train Dreams is my favorite Oscar movie of the year. It does not supplant Wake Up Dead Man, which I recently rewatched as my favorite movie of the year. That movie is phenomenal. I love that movie, Wake Up Dead Man. But Train Dreams. Train Dreams is a simple movie about a man who goes through this incredible tragedy, and it just follows him through his entire life. Not his entire life, but through most of his life. And I just have to say, I have never been as captivated by one man's journey. A lumberjack 200 years ago or 150 years ago, whenever it took place. That was just astounding to me. How a movie could captivate me like that. It's such a slow, deep, intimate exploration of a character, of a man. And I could not believe how emotionally tied to him I felt. How I felt like I was a part of his story. It is incredible to me. This movie is not going to be for everyone. In fact, I can totally see this movie being somebody else's number 14 or 15 or 12 or whatever your last place is. I can totally see it. I totally can. This movie somehow hit me in a way that I just could not believe. I was so impressed with Joel Edgerton. I was so impressed by is it Clint Barkley or something like that? Because he also directed, by the way, and I didn't know this until after I watched the movie. I looked it up because I was like, who directed this movie? Whoever the director is, whatever his name is, I forget. I apologize. He directed Sing Sing. And Sing Sing was one of my favorite movies, Oscar movies, of last year. I was shocked it didn't get nominated for Best Picture. Perhaps this guy, whoever he is, it's just his movies or his directing touch or whatever it is that just captivates me in a certain way, because he's 2 for 2 for me, at least from what I've seen from him. Sing Sing and Train Dreams. Because Train Dreams, to me, I just couldn't believe. I was like, this is not the kind of movie I would have expected. If you told me the premises of every single one of these movies, I would have been like, oh yeah, Song Sung Blue, musical, great. Political thriller, Secret Agent, would have loved that. Frankenstein, great adaptation. F1, great. Train Dreams, movie about a guy, a lumberjack in the 1850s. I would have been like, what? Oh, okay. I 1850s. I don't know when it actually took place. I forget. But I would have been like, no way. That would have been towards the bottom of the list. Guys, I'm as surprised as you are. This is what I love about doing this. This is what I've loved the last 2 years about doing this. I discover movies like Conclave, like Sing Sing, and this year like Hamnet, like Train Dreams. It's been amazing. So Train Dreams is my favorite movie that has been nominated for a major Oscar award. Guys, what do you think of this list? Let me know in the comments. Tell me that you disagree. Tell me that I'm crazy for some of these picks, but let me know in the comments what your list is. I would love to hear it in the comments down below. Alrighty guys, television season is ramping up and we have a lot to look forward to. Pretty soon we're going to be talking about Daredevil, Born Again Season 2, which I am very excited about, and then shortly thereafter is another show that maybe not everyone of you watches, although having seen the numbers that the Gen V spoiler discussions got last year, it seems like a lot of you guys are watching it. The Boys Season 5. We have that to look forward to as well, and we have our final trailer ahead of the show. Now I know that The Boys is a show that is very graphic and very violent and very explicit. Those are not things that I generally, those are not draws for me in terms of movies and TV shows. But I've said this many times before. One of the things about The Boys as a show that is so compelling, or at least was in the earlier seasons, was the subversion and the smart storytelling and the way that they are able to take superheroes and put them in an interesting and different light in our modern context, right? And I have to say, I mean, the character of Homelander, there are some characters, and I love when characters are like this, especially villains, especially antagonists, because they're supposed to be scary. They're supposed to instill fear in you, right? And there are some times where you're watching a Marvel movie or a DC movie, and the villain shows up, and you're like, yeah, but you know the heroes are going to beat them or whatever. There are some villains, though, that they step on screen, and they just instill fear. They have presence, right? Kingpin is one such villain. Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. And Homelander is another. Every time, at least earlier on, Homelander stepped onto the screen, I was just terrified because of what he could do and how unstable he was. Now, I keep saying earlier on, and we'll get to Season 5. I promise this lead-up is relevant to Season 5. I keep saying earlier on because I feel like the show had been building towards that Homelander-Butcher confrontation, right? Seasons 1 and 2, I think, were pretty strong. And then I think Seasons 3 and 4, you bring in the Soldier Boy element, and you start to tie in, other things that are going on in the Sister Stage in Season 4, and Firecracker. But I feel like, as the show went on, it was not stalling necessarily, but beginning to stall, if that makes sense. Because I think we all kind of understood what this final confrontation was going to be. We don't know what it's going to look like explicitly, but it's a Butcher-Homelander confrontation in some form or fashion. And I feel like as the show was going on, seasons 3 and 4 just felt a little bit like they were stuck in the mud, for example. And I'm not saying that they were bad seasons. I just feel like they, having understood what the end game was, I feel like then it just kind of makes the anticipation even bigger. But now we're here. This is it. This is the final season of The Boys. And I have to say, based on the previous trailer that we talked about, and also based on this trailer as well, it looks like they are really not holding back. This is going to be the season. This is going to be where everything goes down, where Butcher confronts Homelander, where Vought either gets taken down or something else happens to them to wrap up that story. And I think that is going to make for an epic and crazy, crazy season of television. Because, again, I think that the writers and the producers, Eric Kripke, I think they know what they want to do, right? That's why you bring back Soldier Boy, you put Sister Sage back in there, and she has her master plans, and obviously Homelander. Now it's revealed in this trailer that Homelander's plan is to get the original Compound V, V1, which I suppose is going to make him even more powerful somehow, which is a crazy thought. So that's an interesting plot twist for him, or plot direction for him. And then you have characters, you see, I think, some shots of the Gen V characters in there as well, and Marie, obviously, was one of the other soups who was, I think, born at the same time. It's been a few months since I've seen Gen V, but she and Homelander are kind of intrinsically tied with that Project Odessa, right, that we talked about there. Again, something interesting that we talked about with Gen V was how they were going to tie in those elements into The Boys season 5, because again, I mean, you would think if you've seen The Boys and you've seen Gen V that of course everyone who's seen The Boys is going to see Gen V, but that's not going to be the case, right? Some people who are watching The Boys season 5 probably have no idea what Gen V even is. So I find it interesting. I find it, a point of fascination to see how they're going to tie everything together. Regardless, Homelander looks terrifying. He just looks like he is at his peak terrifying mode, and I am just excited, but also scared to see what he gets up to in this season. I think that the Boys characters look like they are ready to fight. I love the ending, by the way. What a shock twist to put in a trailer even, but it's effective, because when I saw that ending, that last little clip there, where first of all, A-Train and Starlight hugging is crazy, right? Just based on what's happened in the show. But even still, then Kimiko talks, and I was like, whoa, it seems surprising from an outside point of view of, oh yeah, character talks. I mean, one of her defining characteristics is that she doesn't talk. And so to see that in the trailer, now I don't know, maybe this is going to be some other vision or something like that. There have been some interesting, not dream sequences, but musical sequences and whatever. So perhaps this is happening in someone's imagination or something, or maybe she's actually talking. I don't know. But either way, I'm intrigued. I'm interested. Soldier Boy is back as well. Looks like he is going to be on the side of Homelander, although, based on his allegiances, it seems like he really is one of those characters that he has no allegiance but to himself. So we'll see how long that lasts. And yeah, I just think that, as we head towards this finale, this grand finale of this main series, The Boys, I'm hoping that they can really stick the landing. I know a lot of people, not to bring up another semi-controversial season 5, but I know a lot of people didn't love Stranger Things season 5. I think that season had different problems than this one. It seems like because that season they were trying to figure out the way in which you get to the ending. It feels like, to me, perhaps naively, it feels like they know where they want to go with this season. They've been knowing for a while, and it's actually the previous seasons that have been suffering a little bit because they've known this for a while. So we'll see, but I'm excited. It's coming out in April, and we'll be talking about that series as it comes out. Guys, what do you make of this final trailer for The Boys season 5? Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys, massive news. In terms of Hollywood, in terms of movies, in terms of everything that goes on that we talk about here. I was not on YouTube in 2019 when Disney announced they were buying Fox. This is probably just as monumental in terms of the movie landscape. We've been tracking this. I've been tracking this personally for a while now. I've only made one segment on this note because I acknowledged at the time that this is a situation, we're talking about the purchase of Warner Brothers, that is extremely volatile. And I was waiting because I could have made weekly segments on this. I really could have for the last 2 months about this happens, and then this happens, and Netflix does this, and Netflix does that, and then Paramount does this. But it just felt futile because things change so fast. And this is a weekly show, not a daily show. And so I just felt like I couldn't do that. But there came a moment about a month ago when it looked like Netflix was in control, and it said, all the articles said Netflix is going to buy Warner Brothers. I did some digging and did some reading, and I was like, yeah, this is enough to make a segment about it and say that Netflix is buying Warner Brothers. But even then, in the back of my mind, I thought to myself, this still feels a little premature. Like something could still change, even though almost everyone at the time said, yep, this is a done deal. And again, when we say done deal, we don't mean that the contract had been signed. We just mean that in terms of what was going to happen moving forward. But then enter Paramount, and Paramount did a hostile takeover, and they basically tried their hardest to outbid Warner Brothers, go straight to the shareholders and things like that. And here we are today in today's segment, which again, in this never-ending saga, things could still change. So I just want to be upfront with that. Things can still absolutely change in this crazy saga with Warner Brothers. But as of the recording of this segment, because even when you hear it, things might have changed. As of the recording of this segment, Paramount is now in control to buy Warner Brothers. Paramount put in their last and final bid, I believe. And again, I am just to be upfront and clear, I am a movie person, I am a TV person, entertainment person. I am not a business person. I'm not an expert in finance or economics or things like that. I am just talking about what I've heard, what I've read, what I've seen in the news and things like that. That is all I'm saying. So don't take any of this as any kind of expert financial and economic analysis. This is simply what I'm hearing. But anyways, Paramount put in their bid. They tried to outbid Netflix, I believe, and we were all kind of waiting. What is Netflix going to do? Presumably, I thought that Netflix was going to put in another bid. And then came the shock last week, because we could, I could have tried to cram this into last week's episode, but I just wanted to wait a little bit, let the dust settle and see what happens. And I thought again, maybe Netflix is going to put in another bid. But what happened was that Netflix basically said, we're good. We're not going to put in another bid, which equates to, from what I'm reading, we're walking away. So it's not like Netflix is saying, oh, no, still take our earlier bid. It seems like all the indications are that this is Netflix saying we are walking away from the table, which again puts Paramount in control to buy Warner Brothers. Now in future weeks, I'm sure, and I want to do my due diligence on this. I want to listen to podcasts. I want to read articles. I want to hear what people have to say about this, actual experts, because again, I am not an expert, but we will do probably some more in-depth analysis on what this means for Warner Brothers, for DC, for even the other companies like CNN that Warner Brothers owns, the HBO, there's all sorts of crazy things that could happen here. And yes, some of it probably will delve into the political a little bit, because to say that there's nothing political about what's going on here is also not true, right? And you can go do a lot of reading on your own, but there are a lot of political factors at play as well. In terms of just the movie and television side, though, it is seismic, right? Because there's the one side where Netflix buying Warner Brothers could have been disastrous for the theater culture, but then also Paramount buying Warner Brothers could mean tons of layoffs and things like that. I'm reading here from a Variety article that is quoting some anonymous sources from within these three companies, which I think is fascinating, by the way, at the moment of the merger, or at the moment, rather, of the announcement of the proposed merger, I guess, or acquisition. And there's just a lot of interesting things going on here where, the analysis here that's being discussed in this article is that you think about what's already been happening with Paramount and CBS and how they're letting go of so many people. It's probably going to be the same. One interesting quote in this article that I find just so emblematic of what could be happening is right here. It says, quote, "There's a general sense that 1 + 1, meaning Paramount plus Warner Brothers, will still equal 1. As the combined Paramount/Warner Brothers will need to shed some of its production infrastructure, particularly in TV, where the company will now own Warner Brothers TV Group, which includes Warner Brothers TV, Warner Brothers Unscripted and Alternative TV, Warner Brothers Animation, and Cartoon Network Studios, CBS Studios, and Paramount Television Studios as well." So there's so much fallout from this, guys. There's so much that could happen. I want to wait a little bit to do a more in-depth analysis and deep dive into what's going on, but this is seismic. Again, when I made that segment a month ago, I was even thinking at that point, things might change. Things could get crazy again. And sure enough, things got crazy. Paramount came in and they were like, we're going to do this. And they did it. So we'll have to see. Who knows? Maybe in a week, a third company will come in. I doubt it. I think this is over. But this is the reality we're living in. I want to take some time just to digest it and just to see what's going on. And then we'll come back and we will talk about it a little bit more when it's relevant. Because guys, this is big. And you have to remember, right? this is the last thing I'm going to say. Disney did not buy Fox just so that the X-Men could return to the MCU. That's not why they bought Fox. There's tons of reasons why they bought Fox. That is a reason on the list of pros and cons. It was probably reason 100, So it wasn't the reason. In a similar way, Paramount is not buying Warner Brothers just so they can have Batman. That's not what they're doing. But it is a factor, and it is more relevant to what we talk about here on the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel that I'm sure we will delve into a little bit more later on, just to put that out there, just to make that clear. So guys, what do you make of this? Paramount is apparently in position now to buy Warner Brothers. What do you make of this crazy situation and this ongoing conundrum, catastrophe, or triumph, or success, whatever you want to frame it as? Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty guys, amidst all the turmoil and chaos and potential upheaval that might ensue with Warner Brothers, there are still movies and shows coming out. So regardless of whatever happens with Paramount and whatever's going to happen with DC and Warner Brothers, there are still going to be movies and shows this year from DC and in the upcoming future as well. And one of those shows that we have been waiting for is Lanterns. There are 3 projects that we know of, at least, from the DCU coming out this year. We have not Peacemaker, that was last year. We have Supergirl, coming out in June. Then we have Clayface, now in October. But sandwiched right in the middle, now we know, coming out in August, is the DCU show Lanterns. This is starring Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan and Aaron Pierre as John Stewart, 2 of the Green Lanterns, members of the Green Lantern Corps. And this is a show that I have been, personally, very excited about. Out of all the projects coming up, I think this is perhaps the one in the DCU canon, because obviously the Batman Part 2 is way, 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 way at the top of the list. But in terms of DCU proper, James Gunn's universe, Lanterns has been my most anticipated project. Supergirl, I was interested in. I'm excited for it. I saw the trailer, though, and it just felt a little too Guardians of the Galaxy for me, a little too James Gunn-y for me, and I'm a bit James Gunned out, if you will. It's just his style has sort of been so pervasive throughout the DCU, and especially with Guardians 3, it's just been the last few years. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. And then Clayface, I think could be really good and really interesting. Body horror, not really my thing. And then we have Man of Tomorrow next year. So, there are some varying degrees of excitement with these upcoming projects. But Lanterns, to me, seems like the project that's right up my alley. It's taking a superhero concept, or taking a couple superheroes in, again, the Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan and John Stewart, but putting them in a setting that is wildly different than what we might expect. It's very different from the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern space movie. This is going to be very much Earth-based. When James Gunn first announced this project in 2023, he said that this is going to be like True Detective. It's going to be the Green Lanterns discovering and uncovering a mystery on Earth, and then that leads to other things as well. Now, there will be some sci-fi elements to it, of course. I mean, it's the Green Lantern. You see the rings, and we know Sinestro is going to be in this movie, so there's going to be some action. There's going to be some Green Lantern-ing, if you will. I'm just making up words all over the place today. But in terms of what we see in this trailer, because now we have our first teaser trailer for the show, I think it looks great. I think this is the first DCU project in a while that I'm like, wow, I can't wait. Again, 2025 was all James Gunn. Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, Superman. And then Supergirl looks pretty similar to Superman, or at least James Gunn's style. And then Man of Tomorrow, right? But you have Lanterns and Clayface that I think are really going to stick out in terms of what they can do. And Lanterns in particular. Just, I love thrillers. I love mysteries. Wake Up Dead Man, like I said, is my favorite movie of 2025. I love that movie. I love murder mysteries. I love thrillers. So this is just right up my alley. And I love the camaraderie. I love the chemistry that we see here between John and Hal. I think that it took a couple seconds for me, honestly, in the trailer to get used to Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan, because you're sort of imagining, I'm sure a lot of people are imagining the younger, more up-and-coming Hal Jordan, right? But this is going to be John Stewart now in this movie. And the older, gruffer veteran Hal Jordan is going to be played by Kyle Chandler. But once I locked into that, and once I saw the trailer again for a second time, I was like, this is great. It looks really great. I love the antagonism between those two characters as well, with Aaron Pierre's John Stewart saying, you're old. You're about to be done, and Hal Jordan saying in return to him, you're a substitute teacher. You haven't even been approved by the ring and all that kind of stuff. So I think that dynamic is what could elevate this show to the next level. I think casting is superb here, and I think it has to be superb in order for the show to work. We just saw in a show like Wonder Man, right? Wonder Man, it's not as grandiose as Lanterns, I think, will be. I think Lanterns, while still taking place in what looks like a small town, will still have scale. I'm not saying Wonder Man didn't have scale, but it was a very intimate, personal story. And I think that it really hinged on the chemistry between Yahya Abdul-Mateen and Ben Kingsley as Wonder Man, Simon Williams, and Trevor Slattery. And it worked, in my opinion, because of their chemistry together. And I think that that's great. So I think that just step one, the most foundational, fundamental step, is getting the chemistry between Hal and John, right? And it looks like we will. We see some glimpses of the ring. We see some glimpses of Lantern action. Not too much, though. And again, I would imagine that's more going to be towards the latter half of the show. But I hope that the mystery itself is going to be compelling, because I'm just so hooked, right? I get so hooked so easily on these kinds of premises. And I'm just excited for what we get to see here. This looks like, in an interesting way, in a strange way, it looks almost like WandaVision. And by that, I mean taking superheroes, taking them out of their element and putting them in a completely different genre, a completely different environment, and allowing them to explore this different side of filmmaking and storytelling. And I think that is something that really excites me about Lanterns. And again, you can do so many great things with that. We saw in WandaVision, right? WandaVision was a sitcom, show, I guess, or parody or homage to sitcoms that dealt with grief more than any of the superhero action stuff. It dealt with grief. And so I'm just excited to see what Lanterns has in store. So I'm very excited. I really like this first trailer. It's not the action-packed Green Lantern kind of show that maybe some people had wanted, but that's okay for me. And I'm looking forward to seeing it in August, in just a few months. Guys, what do you make of this first teaser trailer for the DCU show Lanterns? Let me know in the comments down below. And guys, that will do it for episode number 122 of the Access Blockbusters pod. Again, 5 topics this week, but I hope that these 5 topics were interesting for you guys. I always aim to bring sirens again. It's an intro and outro. Anyways, I always aim to bring you guys the highest quality that I can in terms of the things we talk about and why we talk about them, and the kind of analysis that I like to do. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Look forward again. We are ramping up to Oscar week, so my prediction should be out next week in next week's episode. And then we'll kind of dive into Daredevil right after that. We'll do a breakdown of the Oscars themselves, and then do some Daredevil stuff. It'll be an exciting time. I'm excited, guys. I'm really excited. So anyways, after having said the word excited for 50 times, thank you so much for joining us again. Make sure to subscribe to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel. We are so close to 2,000 subscribers, so if you could hit the subscribe button on the way out, I would really appreciate that. Leave a comment down below, leave a like, and check out the podcast on the audio-only platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Overcast as well. Guys, that will do it for episode number 122, and I will see you guys in the next one.